Before we get started, I want to just say that anything you hear me or any of the guests on this podcast say is to be considered for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. You should do your own research before taking financial decisions. And with that, please enjoy the podcast. Okay, everyone, welcome to the podcast, the Trader Dane podcast. Today, we're joined by Dr. David Bonanno. Dr. Bonanno is a clinical psychologist. He helps traders solve the real execution problem. Discipline collapses under adrenaline, things like FOMO, revenge trading, impulse entries, hesitations, you name it. He's also the author of the book, The Consistently Calm Trader, and has served more than 17,000 clients over his 30-plus year career. Dr. Bonanno doesn't teach charts. He teaches the missing piece that makes strategy work, that is emotional regulation and execution under pressure. Welcome to the show, Dr. Dave.
Hey, thanks, Jesper. Great to be here.
Good to have you. Let's dive right into it. So the Trader Dane podcast is really a chance to deep dive on some topics that are trading related. And I'm super keen on discussing trading psychology. I think that is the main determinant of success versus failure. It's not the mechanics. It's not the execution of trades. It's what's inside our heads. I'm sure you will agree. Could you start by introducing a little bit about yourself, how you got into advising traders as a psychologist, and then also maybe a few words on your book?
Oh, sure thing. Yeah. So my book is called The Consistently Calm Trader, Winning the War Between Impulse and Discipline. And, I think that adrenaline is what is the enemy of every trader, because it's kind of related to PTSD in that when you have your fight or flight system activated, which is your adrenaline, of course, your logical brain is supposed to go offline. So, let's say if you're in a dangerous situation, you're not really supposed to be thinking and weighing all your options and going through a list of the pros and cons. You're supposed to be acting or reacting. So I have been in the mental health field since 1993, and I was specializing in people with trauma and PTSD. And I found that's how I really kind of figured a lot of stuff out. I think the books can sort of touch upon what's happening there, but with PTSD, you just have too much adrenaline, and then it spikes up really quickly. And then, that's where anger management comes involved, because your inhibitions go offline. And if you have all this adrenaline, then people can see red, or, like blind rage and stuff like that. But what I say is that for traders, even if you have a little bit of adrenaline going, then that can make you operate less logically. So, of course, you have to have a certain amount of activation for your nervous system, because you have to care, in order to do a good job. But if you put too much pressure on yourself, or if it's tough to, handle a loss and you get angry, there's a whole bunch of emotions that you all face, as you know. And I believe that is where people get into trouble.
Right. That sounds super logical. And it's, so can you tell a little bit more about the difference between, because PTSD is it's a long-term stage of suffering or mental illness versus the experience of going through a day trade, let's say an intraday trade of 30 minutes. What is the differences? What are the similarities between those two situations?
Yeah, sure. Well, of course, they're different situations. And the reason I brought up PTSD is because that's how I was able to figure out what was going on in the human brain. Like I've seen, over, like you said, over 17,000 people, including traders. And so, when you're trading, you can't just be a robot. Like you can't just turn off your emotions, as much as people would like to think that they can. And, if you're starting out and you're trading with a prop firm, for example, or if it's, you're trading simulated, then it's not the same thing as when you actually have real money on the line. And then, of course, if you get angry, or if you feel guilty or frustrated, or all kinds of emotions, that is emotional noise that takes you out of the situation, even to some extent. I'm not saying, traders at home might be thinking like, No, I'm not going crazy when I have a loss. But if you're unable to move past it, then it's going to stay with you and you're going to be reacting in a different way. Like it's kind of like with professional sports. They can practice every day all year, but then when you get into the game, it's different. And you have to be reacting as an athlete. And I think it's the same thing as a trainer. You know, we have, I wrote another book explaining how the mind works. It's called Your Brain is a RoboCat. And what I mean by that is like we have two brain systems that are in operation at all times. So there's our logical brain, which is your, of course, analytics, and it's responsible for your speech, and it's responsible for your willpower and your inhibitions. And then you have your cat brain. And the reason I call it a cat is because it doesn't always do what you want, just like a cat. And so and the thing about your cat brain is it's your emotions, it's your fight or flight, it's your intuition, which you do need to be a trainer. But when it takes over, it can make the robot go offline. And there's no amount of willpower that can override that. So, you know, like you might hear from like somebody who's giving advice and say like, well, you just have to let it go. You just have to stay disciplined. You have to make rules to follow your rules. I think those things can work sometimes, but definitely not when the problem is serious. And so what really needs to happen is people need to rewire their nervous system in order to not have that problem in the first place.
Yeah. You hear that. I hear that all the time from traders, even experienced traders with years of experience. They will still go on tilt, like they will still lose control. And it's almost like and I've tried it as well. It's almost like you become a different person, right? And you don't recognize your train of thought and your actions afterwards. It's like something else took over. Is that what you're saying? That's the cat brain taking over.
Yeah, totally, Jesper. I mean, like for anybody who's really lost their temper, you like, I'm just thinking about an argument I got into with a friend where he wanted to keep it going. And then I was like, you know, I really shouldn't say these things. And it's just like when you're trading, you know, like you shouldn't click.
Yeah.
But then to get out of that unpleasant state, you're going to end up clicking. And then I just finally told this guy, like, I went off on him and I wasn't really there in a way. I wasn't really conscious. Like if people can sort of understand what I'm saying, like I wasn't in full control. And when it comes to anger management, for example, it's not what do you do once you lose control? It's how to recognize you're getting there and then to do something to prevent that. I think that's a critical skill for traders as well.
Right. So that's kind of like the metaphor would be the seatbelt, right? When things go off the rails, you have something that you can pull yourself back to. Is there also a way to prime yourself? You mentioned like recognizing that you're going off on a path like this. Is there a way to prime your brain and practice? Because like you said, it's also like an athlete practicing. It's still different when you're in a game, when you're in a tournament. Is there a way to prime your brain in practice to actually be more mentally present and more in control when the pressure is on?
Right. And yeah, that's a great question. And while I do offer like I have this protocol that people can use in real time when they're going on tilt that can help bring them back. But what I really do is try to rewire people's nervous system so that before they ever get into that, should I click or shouldn't I click, they're regulating their emotions already. So we're not winning the battle, we're preventing the battle in the first place.
Right.
And I work in a different way than other coaches because other coaches, they try to get you to have like an insight, like an aha moment, and they try to help you to think differently, change your thoughts. Like, for example, you could, like, they might tell you to keep repeating, I need to follow my rules. I need to follow my rules. Well, yeah, sure. No shit. But when you feel that aha moment and when it really resonates with you, then that's what's really going to stick. So my method uses eye movements we can do an exercise to show the audience, but that started from a PTSD therapy. And the problem with that is nobody uses it outside of PTSD. So I found a way for traders to be able to just really kind of divest their emotions from what's going on in a healthy way and in a way that's really thorough and addresses the problem at the root.
And it starts with eye movement exercises.
Yeah. So when you're moving your eyes back and forth, you're kind of replicating rapid eye movement. And that is your subconscious brain, of course. Like when you're dreaming, it's not conscious. And it's really kind of like hypnosis, but there's no trance. The people are alert and awake the whole time.
Yeah.
And you just can have these real breakthroughs. Like, I wish it was more well known. It is like EMDR, if you guys want to look that up. That's the most heavily used and researched therapy in history for trauma. But like I'm saying, like I'm the first guy to take it to trading psychology. And that's where that comes in.
So you address the subconscious by doing this, by simulating REM sleep, because REM sleep is like this. It's this state between deep sleep and awake, right?
Yeah, and like the science is really not exactly able to identify or explain what's going on there, because we're trying to use logical, conscious terms to describe like subconscious phenomena. So, I mean, we all know that meditation and mindfulness are good ideas, but science can't say what that is, and they can't even really explain what dreaming is, or hypnosis, or any of these other subconscious phenomena. So it can be hard for people to understand unless they try it. And it's kind of difficult for me as a coach, I have to admit, because I know that I can really help people on a very deep level, but they don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
You have to try it, right?
Yeah. If it's okay, how about if we jump in and
of course, yeah, let's do it. Let's do a test.
Okay, awesome.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, you should try and do the test with us. If you're just listening to this, maybe you want to jump on YouTube.
Right. So now it's important. Can you see that, Jesper?
Just 1 second. Yes, now I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, in order to do this exercise, you have to have your head close enough to the screen and so that your eyes will move back and forth. If you're on a phone, you might have to hold it up to your face. But what I'd like people to do first is, without eye movements, to try to remember the worst trade or the worst loss that you've ever had, maybe even the first one or the most recent one, but really try to get in touch with that. So I'd like people to close their eyes and try to feel it in their body. So for like 5 seconds, here we go. Okay, very good. And now I'd like for the people to continue to have their eyes closed and for them to recall and relive the best win that they ever had. So here we go. All right. Now, I wonder if you guys at home, before we move our eyes, I wonder if you guys can tell what's in common for both of those feelings. I don't know if you, it's kind of a difficult question, but yeah, what do you think, Jesper?
For me, it was, I mean, it does trigger the same emotional response, in the sense, I mean, a slightly heightened heart rate, some level of emotion, like in my head, but also in my sort of diaphragm area.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to kind of show people, is that adrenaline isn't just when you're upset. It's also like when you're really excited, or you get kind of like on a high, and of course there's all kinds of people out there who trade in order to get that high. And you know who you are out there. You're trading to feel something, and instead of trading to make money. Yeah. But even when you're excited, or when you're trying to get that fix for your addiction, then you're also I think, not operating at 100% analytically. Your logical brain is compromised to some extent. So what I'd like for you guys to do now, please, is to watch the ball. Make sure your head is close enough to the screen and that you are not here. I'm going to slow down the speed just a little bit. And so we try not to move your head back and forth. And then here we go. Follow the ball and just breathe. Oops. Okay. Very good. And I wonder how many of you out there felt like it was kind of relaxing, because that's kind of what's happening. We're connecting the two sides of the brain, the right side and the left side, which, is one is analytical and one is your instincts. And so now what I'd like for you guys to do, this exercise is going to help people to handle losses. I think that's maybe the most critical skill for any trainer, is to be able to really, just move on from it. So we need to kind of recreate what happens during a loss. So once again, please try to recall and relive the worst loss or whatever stands out for you the most as you watch the ball. All right, very good. Everybody still there? How you doing, Jesper?
Still here.
All right, very good. Now, I want you guys to separate the sadness from everything else. So if you feel guilty or disappointed or angry or resentful or any host of emotions, including excitement, I want you to look inside your heart as you watch the ball and separate all that stuff from just the sadness. I mean, because, it really sucks that you had this loss. It's sad. So I'd like for you to separate those two things and feel the sadness, please. All right, good job, people. We're almost done. This is extremely short exercise, and of course, if people work with me, then it will be really thorough. But what I'd like for you to do now is to hopefully, you're not feeling it so intensely with the anger and stuff like that. But imagine if you were able to be sad about a loss. Would you be able to move on from it? Would you be able to accept reality and then move on with a clean slate, as opposed to being angry and carrying that with you? So just think about those two alternatives, please. All right, great job. And then our last one is, I'd like for people to imagine if they did have the ability to accept reality, and even though it sucks, and you can still feel sad, but if you could feel sad for just a little bit and then move on to the next trade, how would that help your trading? How would that help you? And how would that help anybody else you care about? So please think about those things right now. All right. So how was that for you, Jesper?
I feel like the words, when you explained it afterwards, that was exactly what I was going through. So when you said relaxed after the first little go there, relaxation was exactly what I was feeling. And so, and you didn't prime me in any way, right? So it's kind of guiding me through my own emotions after the fact. So that's really insightful. And then what I also think is that when you start splitting it up between being sad versus being angry, it's about acceptance. And I mean, if acceptance, and that's actually a question for you, if acceptance is if you can encapsulate that and accept what happened, then you can also much easier move on, correct? Because anger is really the result of not accepting reality, right?
Absolutely, 100%. I learned this from a friend of mine who was Buddhist, and yeah, like it's pain, as you guys know, pain is pain times pain times resistance is suffering. And
Right.
so, something bad happened. Do you want to continue to suffer? Or, if you keep saying, well, anger is like, I shouldn't have done this. The market shouldn't have done this. I should have done this.
Yeah.
Well, it feels a little better than being sad because you have some power. If you're considering what didn't happen, then you have power in that fantasy of yours. If you want to be back in the real world and accept what happened, that's how you can move on. And so what I preach to people is to actually practice feeling sad.
Yeah.
And so with anything in your life, but if you could be sad, it's not going to last forever. You just like, wow, I just lost a lot of money. That really sucks. I'm going to feel sad for maybe 10 minutes, and then I'm going to get up and do something else. And so if you can actively be sad, you can accept reality. And then the next time you trade, you're going to come at it with much less adrenaline.
Right. With a clear mind. And I think it's personally, I would say that getting to the next day, I mean, when you're in it and you've taken a big loss, you think, oh my God, this is going to affect the rest of my month. I'm a failure. It's all bad. But really, the next day at 9:30, when the markets are opening again, I mean, depending on the size of the loss, you're pretty much a clean slate and ready to go again. That's often how it is. But I would also say sadness, if you can put a few more words, that sadness isn't necessarily about forgetting what happened, is it?
No, not at all. No.
So you're not sort of putting it in a drawer and like denying the fact that it happened. It's actually it's much more than that, right?
Right. It's accepting that it did happen. Yeah. It's kind of the opposite of denial.
Living with it. Yeah.
I don't know how it is in Denmark, but here in the United States, I think people are not good at feeling sad. I think we're kind of believe that we should be happy all the time and living our best life and posting it on Instagram. But no, I think it's really important for everybody to just calm down every once in a while and grieve, just like you're grieving a lost loved one.
Right.
Like this is an opportunity that you lost.
Yeah. And we actually, I think in Denmark, at least we have, I think they've recently introduced a grievance leave. Like you get some time off from work after you've lost a relative. Awesome. That's a really powerful thing. And I think that's super necessary. And also for mental well-being and everything, it's difficult to just go right back into your job if you've lost a close relative. So that is really that, right? I don't know how that works in the US, but that's embracing the fact that sadness needs attention and it needs time. But then again, if you take your average day trader, let's say 20 to 25-year-old, not a lot of experience, certainly not with sadness, probably. What do you engage with people like that? Because a lot of day traders will be in their 20s and 30s, maybe. They must have a mindset that is very distant from that kind of acceptance of sadness, acceptance of loss, even being that kind of emotionally aware. How do you bridge that gap? You probably also see it in older folks as well, but it's just how do you bridge that gap of becoming emotionally aware?
Yeah, great question. I don't seem to work with as many. I definitely do talk to young influencers and stuff like that, and young traders when I can. I don't seem to have too many of them as clients because, like you're saying, I think sometimes they're not as emotionally aware. I think oftentimes they're obsessed with improving their system.
Superheroes.
Yeah. Nice. And yeah, they're thinking that it's their strategy. Whereas older people might have a little more wisdom and they're able to like admit their faults and see what's going on there. So I mean, like, yeah, with young guys, I just try to help them to be aware, really, like, you know, what is going on when you're experiencing, you know, the tilt, or when you're just like kind of trading, not very consciously, but you're just kind of like, you know, clicking buttons. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess that's not a great answer to your question, but
No,
I seem to work better with people who are really serious about trading and have money to invest in themselves and are able to admit mistakes.
And the understanding, like I said in the beginning, like the understanding that it is emotions that are driving your results. It's not the mechanics.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Some young people are definitely mature enough to see that.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, a lot of people are. And like you said, a lot of older people really are not either. They don't want to admit faults. And then, of course, you know, if you go online, everybody's posting their wins.
Yeah.
And you know, not like,
and older people will also be more set in their ways, right? It's difficult to change that much. I have a sort of a contrarian question. Is there a place in trading for emotions like adrenaline? Like, you can see my guitars in the back here, right? I've been a musician for many years. I will also always go on stage with some level of adrenaline, because it's the good adrenaline. It's like when you take an exam. It makes you perform just that little bit better, right? Is there a place in trading for that kind of positive adrenaline, or should you aim to sort of eliminate it and diminish it as much as possible?
Awesome question. I think if you were to graph it on a chart, and I know you guys all love charts, if you have too little adrenaline, then you're not going to be using your resources as well as you can. You won't have enough energy. You won't have enough focus. So yes, you do have to have a certain amount of adrenaline to function. And then if you see it on the graph, like the more you add, the performance will go down, because like I was saying, it's going to cloud your performance. And so when you're on stage, then of course you need to have that good adrenaline. But I think what else is kind of happening is your training is taking over. So like I talked to a military veteran one time, a combat veteran, and I was saying, man, I could never do that. I couldn't fight in a battle. And he said, yeah, you could, because you would go through training and they just drill, like they make you do the same things like 1,000 times. With trading, you can't really do that. You might be able to like instill certain habits in yourself to some degree, but unfortunately, like you can't memorize what to do the way that you can when you're playing a song. Does that make sense?
And yeah, absolutely. And also, compared to a special forces soldier or whatever, who will have a sergeant and superiors and so on, a day trader will have himself and himself only, right? So you need to be your own kind of drill sarge, which obviously is difficult, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like, yeah, when you're working with other people, they can see a lot of times they can see how you're doing better than you can see how you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about performance. I'm talking about your emotional state. You know, once in a while, like somebody might be able to tell you, hey, you gotta dial it back. You gotta calm down a little bit. Whereas when you're trading by yourself and you're alone, you might not be aware of what's happening. And you know,
100%.
there's something I call mindset leakage, which is like all the stuff that you're not even aware that you're doing. And it's subconscious. So, I mean, like you might be hesitating a little bit too long, or you might be staying in too long or whatever. And it seems like it makes sense to you and you can justify your actions, but how much are you really losing because you don't have the mindset that you could have? And then, when it comes to journaling, well, you're still not going to be aware of what you could have done better. And like you can be aware of what the market did, but in terms of you making your decision based on the circumstances at the time, you're not aware of it. It's subconscious, and the definition of subconscious is that it's not conscious. So when you're asking yourself, well, what am I not conscious of? You're not going to get an answer. So
it's difficult to get an answer. That's actually I don't know if you've read that one, but I've read the it's called The Mental Game of Trading. It's a book by Jared Tendler, and it's pretty much all of the it's a great book, but all of the advice in there is to write down your emotions and things like that as you're going through it. So when you're in a trade, things going against you, all of that, he always turns to write it down, make sure you record it, and then that can then let you reflect on it afterwards. I see where it's coming from, but it just doesn't work for me. I think something that would work better for me was actually having, and I'm going to be live streaming my trading soon, is having a recording of what I'm doing. I've done that a few times just for myself. And when I see these recordings, it's just so clear that I'm over managing things. Like I'm constantly doing stuff to my trade. And it's seeing that rather than, taking my physical journal and looking up, okay, what did I do good and bad yesterday? That doesn't work the same way for me.
And, of course, I agree with Jared Tendler that you should be in touch with your emotions as much as you can. You should journal. But you know what? Yeah, it's limited because your emotions are not the same as your logical brain.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you heard people say, like, there's no words for how I feel, or, like, I can't, like,
or having someone say to you, you shouldn't be doing this, right? But that doesn't work. It doesn't click. You're not in my situation. It doesn't work like that. So
yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because that's exactly where I feel like I come in. People could give you good advice, great advice, and you still can't follow it, and then you feel worse about yourself. Yeah. With the eye movements, I bridge the gap between knowing what you should do and actually being able to do it. And so I recommend that when you're journaling, you should use eye movements. So you should recreate what was going on, because you're speaking the same language as the subconscious as you're moving your eyes. If you don't, if you're doing what Jared Tendler says, which is, not bad, but you're translating your subconscious phenomena into a conscious language, and then you got to translate it back as you're writing it down, you're going to lose a lot in translation there. So I think I have this ChatGPT coach that I built that I let my clients use, and there's a journaling protocol for that, and people really love it.
Yeah, it can be great for that stuff. And I think there's also one of the merits of actually recording it physically is it just sticks better in your mind, right? When you the tactile exercise of writing stuff down, that's what works for me, but it doesn't necessarily change my behavior the next time I'm going through something similar, right? I want to ask a little bit of a different question now. We're getting towards the end, Dave. It's been a great conversation, but I mentioned in the beginning in your introduction that things holding traders back are things like FOMO, like impulse entries, revenge trading. Personally, I have recognized that I have a lot of problems with taking a loss. I've set up a rule for myself that I cannot enter a trade 5 minutes after losing one. So I cannot just re-enter. And it's a rule, and I have to enforce it on myself. So I'm working on that. But what is the biggest hurdle that you see, or the biggest mistake you see people make, and what most traders that you work with are actively working on themselves out of these things?
Yeah, I would say it's revenge trading.
Yeah.
And because, especially, when you're down and you just want to get back, unfortunately, I think prop firms are great, but they have you chase these arbitrary numbers. And ideally, you should just be trading whatever makes sense. But if you're trying to get to a certain place, or if you're trying to get back to zero, you're going to be putting more pressure on yourself, which is adrenaline. And of course, you're probably going to be angry. And yes, that's a really good rule, to not trade before 5 minutes after you have a loss. But as you probably know, people don't follow their rules.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I've talked to so many people. They're like, I got my rules right here. I even got rules.
I have them posted on my screen.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I got rules to help me follow my rules. And then when you're pissed, or when you're talking yourself into clicking, then it's all out the window. It's your fight or flight brain that takes over. You're so fucking pissed off. I just want to get back to zero. Why doesn't the market do this for me? And then another thing, Jesper, is like in other areas of life, if you work harder, you're more likely to have success. But with trading, if you work too hard, you're going to screw yourself.
Yeah, it's actually the reverse, right? You do too much, you actually hurt yourself. Yeah. How does that work then? Do you also engage with people with other aspects of their lives, like trying to improve themselves, because a pro athlete will have pretty much everything in their life revolve around performance and that particular sport. Is that also something that you work with traders to do? To, like, I'm going to the gym, I keep my discipline up. I actually also being on social media requires discipline, right? So
Yeah.
all of that implementation of discipline into your everyday life, is that something you also work with people to do?
Yes, it is. So I do have a fair amount of clients who are doing very, very well, and they need a coach. They want a coach. Like, I have this guy who has he's like, I pay a golf coach. I'm a great golfer, but I need that guy to keep me,
Right.
sharp. And there's nothing wrong with having that for trading. You don't have to be screwed up or having problems in order to call the doctor. I mean, like, I'm a performance coach. So when it does come into other parts of your life that are affecting your trading, I do sometimes deal with that. I mean, I don't want to be a therapist. I refer people to therapy. If it's a trauma, for example, I can clear it up very quickly with the eye movements, or if somebody's just stuck on something, I'm really good at that. But if it turns out like, oh, you have mother issues, or a lot of traders have male traders have father issues.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that could be a little sticky, but if somebody does choose to work with me, they get unlimited access to me for 8 weeks. And we get you into top shape. I mean, if there's any type of roadblocks, we're going to address those, but we're also strengthening your ability to stay focused and calm when the pressure's on. So like that's a really good question. But yeah, when people work with me, like I make sure no matter what that they get what they need, and then if they don't, I don't want their money.
Yeah, of course. And it is really about, I mean, if you're a serious trader, you want to engage with a coach like yourself to up your game. I know I have a couple of CEO contacts in my network who also have personal coaches, and it doesn't matter if you're a CEO or not. It's just, if you want to stay on top of your game, you can also be a super profitable trader and still have a coach, because like you say, to keep yourself sharp, to keep you engaged, make sure you're not falling off or underperforming like that, right? So I suppose you also work with, like, longer term with experienced traders, yeah?
Oh, sure. Yep. Yeah. After they become a client of mine, then I never want that relationship to end unless they do. But like, when I was working with people with trauma, they were not able to put a value on the work that we were doing together, and they just wanted to keep using their insurance. And so I figured that with traders, like, somebody could tell me they lost $15,000 yesterday. And if my fee is $10,000, it should be, no brainer. Like, how much more money are you going to make exponentially over the course of your career if you work with me? And yet I still run into people who make decisions emotionally. Like, like my whole, philosophy of my book and everything, it's all about controlling your emotions. And yet when it comes to spending money, like investing in yourself, people are still only emotions.
Super emotional.
So, like, how many interviews have you heard where people say, like, how did you make your money? How did you make your financial dreams come true? Do they say, well, I saved money on mentorship?
No.
Like, you got to spend money to make money. And it's like, I just wrote it in my book. Like, if you're still making decisions about, like, investing in yourself, that doesn't make sense. You just read this whole book and agreed that you got to be logical. So it's
some of the best traders I know treat all of those things as a business expense. It's a little bit like your losses in trading, right? It's tuition. It's a business expense. You treat your trading like a business. It's much more likely to come into fruition, to be successful like that, right? That's a really great point. Yeah. Awesome. So Dr. Dave, we have to wrap it up here. It's been a great conversation. Just tell people where they can find you, and also how to find you.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. So if you were to look up my book, it's on Amazon, and it's called The Consistently Calm Trader, How to Master the War Between Impulse and Discipline. You can really get to know me that way. Or you can also go to my YouTube channel, and I'm sure there'll be a link there, right? Jesper. And
Absolutely.
then,
Yeah.
So YouTube is a really good way to see more of what I'm about, but also for you to do free exercises. And if those really work for you, then I mean that's just a really great way to go. It's so much better than everybody else. I mean, trying to change your thoughts and all that stuff. So yeah, YouTube and my book would be a great way to go. And then of course you can go to my website, which there's links on my YouTube, and Jesper will have those too. And I'd love to talk with you. I love talking with all kinds of traders. It's really cool. It's more fun than PTSD.
You can really tell. You can really tell. I mean, it's been a great conversation. I think it's inspiring. And yes, I will put everything in terms of getting in touch with you in the show notes of the program here. So it's going to be easy for people to find. And I would just want to say I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a great pleasure.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jesper. It was fun.